Welcome to Lukebook Money, built for Singapore. Today, two brothers and the CPF argument every Singaporean family has. 30 years later, only one is laughing. Here's the real story. Quick favor before we start. If you're new to Tiger Brokers, just tap the link in my description below, or key in the code on your screen when you sign up. We both earn $90, and it quietly keeps these daily videos free. Thank you. Now, let's get into it. This is a story about two brothers and one argument. It is the argument that happens at almost every Singaporean family dinner, eventually, over the years. One brother believed the most boring account in Singapore was quietly the best deal he would ever get. The other was convinced that same account was a black hole, money you hand over and never see again. They earned similar salaries. They started at the same age. The only real difference between them was what they chose to believe about four little letters, CPF. 30 years later, that one belief had quietly built one brother a guaranteed income for life and left the other one anxious, and still working. Here is the strange part. The thing they argued about was not some risky scheme or a hot stock tip. It was a guaranteed return of around 4% a year. 4%, risk-free, compounding quietly in the background, inside an account that every working Singaporean already owns. And almost nobody uses it on purpose. Let's put a single number on the thing nobody uses. This is the story of the 4% that nobody uses. Let's meet the two brothers properly. The cast is two brothers and one decision. Let's introduce them. We'll call the older one Wei, and the younger one Jun. They are not one specific real pair of people. They are a composite, built from patterns we have all watched play out, in our own families. Both grew up in the same flat, ate at the same hawker center, and started their careers earning ordinary Singapore salaries. If you froze the story right at the start, you would say these two brothers were identical, and their futures should be identical too. They were not. The argument started, as these things do, at a family dinner. We mentioned, almost casually, that he had topped up his CPF again that year, and gotten some tax relief back for it. Jun put down his chopsticks and laughed. Not a mean laugh, exactly. More the laugh you give someone who has been gently fooled. Why, he asked, would you ever put more money into CPF on purpose? You can't even touch it. To Jun, the logic was obvious. CPF was money the government takes from your salary every month, whether you like it or not. You don't see it, you can't spend it. You can't even withdraw most of it until you are at least 55. To him, topping it up voluntarily was like volunteering to lock your own money in a drawer and throw away the key. He had a phrase for it. He called CPF a black hole. Wei saw it completely differently. To him, CPF was the one place in Singapore where the government had quietly agreed to pay him a guaranteed return, year after year. He wasn't topping up because he loved the government. He was topping up because, when he did the maths, it was simply one of the best risk-free deals available to an ordinary person in this country. And here is the honest thing. Both brothers had a point. Jun was right that the money is locked away, and locking money away has a real cost. Wei was right that the return is unusually good and unusually safe. This episode will not tell you one brother was a genius and the other a fool. It is going to walk through exactly what a CPF top-up does, what it gives you, what it takes from you, and let you decide where you sit. This is education, not financial advice. But the stakes are higher than a dinner table laugh. The decision these brothers made in their 30s, and repeated quietly every year, compounded for 3 decades. And compounding does something to small differences. It makes them enormous. By their 60s, the gap was the difference between a paycheck for life, and the fear of running out. Before we judge either brother, let's get the facts straight about what CPF even is. Let's make sure we are all on the same page about what CPF actually is, because a lot of the argument comes from not knowing the details. CPF is Singapore's national savings system. A slice of your salary, and a slice from your employer, goes into it every month. It is split across a few accounts: the ordinary account, mostly for housing, the special account, for retirement, and the MediSave account, for healthcare. Now, the part most people forget. These accounts pay interest. The ordinary account pays around 2.5% a year. But the special account, and later the retirement account, pay a higher rate around 4% a year. And the government adds an extra 1% on the first $60,000 of your combined balances, with even more for older members. That 4% is the engine of this entire story. It does not sound exciting. But pause on the words risk-free. There is no stock market crash that takes it away. There is no company that can go bankrupt and wipe it out. There is no bad year. It just pays, every single year, like clockwork. In a world where safe government bonds often pay much less, a guaranteed 4% floor is genuinely rare. Wei understood this. Jun never stopped to look. So let's slow right down and see what actually happens the moment you do a top-up. Because there are two things happening at once when you top up, and most people only ever notice one of them. The scheme Wei was using has a long and very Singaporean name. It is called the Retirement Sum Topping Up Scheme. Say it slowly, because the name tells you exactly what it does. You are topping up your retirement sum, voluntarily putting extra cash into the account that pays 4%. That's it. No magic. No catch you can't see. Just moving money into the boring, high-floor account deliberately. Here is what most people miss. When Wei did a top-up, two completely separate good things happened at the same time. The first was the 4%. The money he put in started earning that guaranteed return immediately. The second was a tax relief. The government reduced his taxable income for that year, which meant he paid less income tax. 2 gifts, 1 transaction. Now the second gift, the one most people don't even know they're leaving on the table. Let's talk about that second gift, because this is the part Wei was quietly clever about. When you top up your own retirement account with cash, you can get income tax relief of up to $8,000 a year. And if you also top up the accounts of your parents, or your spouse, you can get relief on up to another $8,000. So up to $16,000 of relief a year, in total, for top-ups to yourself and your family. What does tax relief actually mean in dollars? It is not a discount on the top-up. It means that amount is taken off your taxable income before your tax is calculated. So if you pay, say, 11.5% on your top slice of income, $8,000 of relief saves you roughly $900 in tax that year. The higher your income, the more each dollar of relief is worth to you. Now, an honest caveat, because numbers matter. If you earn very little and already pay little or no income tax, the tax relief gives you almost nothing, so the top-up is really only about the 4% for you. If you earn more and sit in a higher bracket, the relief is worth a lot more. This is one reason CPF top-ups are not equally useful for everyone. We'll come back to that honestly. Here is the move that made Wei different from almost everyone who tops up. He did not just enjoy the tax savings as a little bonus. When that $900 or so of saved tax landed back in his pocket, he did not spend it. He took that money and he invested it. A simple, low-cost index fund. Every single year. So his top-up was feeding two engines at once. A guaranteed 4% inside CPF, and a stock market engine outside it, fueled purely by tax he would otherwise have paid. Jun, meanwhile, did the opposite of nothing. He spent. Not recklessly, he wasn't gambling it away. He just lived a slightly bigger life. A nicer phone every couple of years. More dinners out. The occasional upgrade. Each individual choice was small and pleasant and completely forgettable. And that's exactly the problem with money that just trickles out of your hands. You never notice it leaving, so you never notice it gone. Here's the mental model that made Wei treat a boring account as a treasure. There is a useful way to think about what Wei was building, and it comes from how professional investors structure money. They talk about a floor. A floor is a safe, borrowing base of guaranteed income that holds up your whole plan, so the riskier parts can take risks without threatening your survival. Wei was using CPF as his floor. The 4% was not trying to make him rich. It was making sure he could never become poor. Let's be clear about what a top-up is not. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme. 4% will never double your money in 2 years. It will not beat a roaring stock market in a good decade. If you are looking for excitement, CPF is the most boring thing in your financial life, and it is supposed to be. So who is a CPF top-up actually good for? Roughly, someone who already has an emergency fund, and no high-interest debt eating them alive. Someone who has money they genuinely will not need before retirement, and who would like a guaranteed, tax-advantaged floor under the rest of their plan. If that sounds like a specific person rather than everyone good, it is. That's the honest version. There is also a ceiling on this. You can't top up an unlimited amount. The special account top-ups are capped. You can only top up until your retirement savings reach a certain target, called the full retirement sum. Once you hit it, the door for further tax relief top-ups closes. So this is not a strategy for hiding millions from tax. It is a modest, capped, deliberately limited tool. Which, honestly, is part of why it's safe. A quick but important distinction that trips people up. The scheme that gives you both the 4% and the tax relief is about topping up your retirement savings, not your housing account. There are actually 2 ways to boost your retirement savings, and they are not the same thing. One is a cash top-up, where you add new money from your bank account. This is what earns you tax relief. The other is transferring money you already have in your ordinary account into your special account, to earn the higher interest. That earns the 4%, but gives no tax relief, and it is permanent. Know which lever you're pulling. Wei aimed his cash top-ups deliberately at the higher interest retirement side. Aim matters. 2 brothers, same money. One feeds a quiet 4% engine and reinvests his tax savings. The other spends it, pleasantly, and forgets. Let's run the clock forward. Year 1. Wei tops up. Let's use a simple, round, illustrative number. He puts in $8,000, the amount that gets him the full personal tax relief. At the end of the year, that $8,000 has earned around 4%. So a few $100s of guaranteed interest, plus a few hundred saved in tax, which he invested. Jun spent his $8,000. At the end of year 1, the visible gap between them is almost nothing. This is the trap. Early on, it looks like it doesn't matter. The first few years of compounding are genuinely unimpressive. 4% of a small number is a small number. Your brother who spent his money is having visibly more fun, with a nicer phone and better holidays. And you have a slightly larger balance in an account you can't touch. If you are going to quit, you quit here, in the boring early years. Wei didn't quit. Let's watch the snowball build. Here is Wei's CPF top-up balance over the first decade, as an illustration. Let's fast forward through the decades and watch the snowball actually build. Year 10. Wei has now topped up 10 times. With 4% compounding on top of compounding, his top-up balance is somewhere around $100,000. And remember, a chunk of that is pure interest he never had to work for. Jun, over the same 10 years, spent roughly the same amount of money. He has the memories, which are real and worth something. But he has no $100,000. The gap has stopped being invisible. This is the snowball. In the early years, almost all of the growth comes from the money Wei puts in. But somewhere around the second decade, something shifts. The interest the account earns each year starts to rival, and then beat, the amount Wei is adding himself. The money is now making money faster than he is. He could almost stop topping up, and the snowball would keep rolling on its own. That is compounding finally waking up. And remember the extra 1% the government adds on the first part of your balances. In the early years, when your balance is small, the extra 1% covers most of your money. That gives you closer to 5% than for a deliberate nudge to reward the small saver. Wei was getting a turbo boost precisely when he needed encouragement most. Now don't forget Wei's second engine, the one outside CPF. Every year, he took the tax he saved and put it into a plain index fund. Call it $800 to $1,000 in a typical year. On its own, that sounds trivial. But $1,000 a year, in a market that historically returns 6 to 8% over long stretches, also compounds. After 30 years, this little side portfolio, built entirely from tax he would otherwise have paid, grows into a meaningful sum of its own. Think about what that side portfolio really is. It is money Wei would never have had. Without the top-up, it would have left him as income tax and vanished. By topping up, he redirected it back to himself, and let the stock market grow it for 30 years. That is the part Jun never understood when he laughed. What was Jun doing all this time? He was fine. Let's be fair to him. He was not broke. He had a job, a flat, a life. He took nice holidays. But every year, the money that could have been building a floor under his old age was instead being converted into experiences that did not compound. He was, without ever deciding to, choosing the present over the future, again and again and again. If you drew both brothers' net worth on the same graph, the shape would tell the whole story. Jun's line is mostly flat. It wiggles with his income and spending, but it never really climbs. Wei's line starts flat too, right next to Jun's, almost touching. And then, slowly, it begins to curve upward. By year 15 it has clearly separated. By year 30 it is a different universe. Same starting point. Opposite curves. But a graph hides the hardest part of this whole strategy. Let's talk about how it actually feels. There is an emotional dimension the graph hides. For most of those 30 years, Wei felt slightly poorer than Jun. His money was locked up. Jun's was visible and spendable. At family gatherings, it was Jun who looked like he was winning. Choosing the boring path means accepting years of feeling like the one who is missing out. That feeling is the real price of the 4%, not the dollars, the patience. Let's name what actually made Wei's plan work, because it wasn't cleverness. It was repetition. He did the same small, dull thing every single year for 30 years, when nobody was watching and nothing exciting was happening. Most financial outcomes are not decided by one brilliant move. They are decided by one ordinary move, repeated until it becomes a mountain. Wei was not smarter than Jun. He was just more boring, for longer. Now an honest note before we get carried away. 4% is a nominal return. Over 30 years, inflation eats into what that money can actually buy. So Wei's pile, while real and large, is worth a bit less in future groceries than the raw number suggests. The good news, 4% has historically kept pace with or slightly beaten long-run Singapore inflation, so his money roughly held its real value and then some. But never confuse a big future number with big future purchasing power. Let's go a little deeper on this, because it's where optimism gets punctured. If prices rise at, say, 2% a year, then a 4% return only grows your real spending power by about 2%. That's still positive, still good for safe money, but it means CPF protects and slowly grows what you have, rather than multiplying it. For multiplication, you need the riskier engines. CPF is preservation with a gentle tailwind, not a rocket. That's exactly why Wei kept his second engine outside it. It has all been theory and curves so far. Now let's get to the moment it actually matters, the day both brothers stop working. Both brothers are now in their early 60s. The working years are mostly behind them. The salary that funded everything is about to switch off. This is the moment every retirement plan is actually built for, not the saving years, but the day the saving stops and the money has to start carrying you instead. And this is where the two brothers' lives split apart for good. Here is what Wei's 3 decades of topping up turned into. Because he kept feeding his retirement account, By 55 he had comfortably reached the full retirement sum, the target balance that unlocks the best version of Singapore's national pension scheme. This is the machine all that topping up was secretly feeding. Meet CPF Life. That scheme is called CPF Life. It is the part most people never think about until it's too late to influence it. CPF Life is an annuity. It pays you a monthly income, for as long as you live, that can never run out. Let's make sure that word is clear, because it is the whole point. An annuity is a deal where you hand over a lump sum, and in return you receive a guaranteed paycheck every month until you die. The magic of it is that you cannot outlive it. Whether you live to 70 or 102, the check keeps coming. For most ordinary people, the single biggest fear in retirement is running out of money before they run out of life. CPF Life is built specifically to remove that fear. So what does Wei actually receive? Because he reached the full retirement sum, his CPF Life pays him a monthly income, automatically, for the rest of his life. As an illustrative figure, someone in his position might receive somewhere in the region of $2,800 to $3,400 a month. That is a guaranteed paycheck he did nothing to earn this month, it simply arrives, because of what he did decades ago. Put that number in context. $2,800 to $3,400 a month, guaranteed for life, with no investment decisions and no stress, is a genuinely strong retirement floor. It is not a fortune. You are not buying a yacht. But it covers a modest, dignified life: hawker meals, utilities, transport, the small pleasures. Without Wei ever having to ask anyone for help. Let's ground that in real Singapore life. The median full-time wage is somewhere around $5,500 a month. So a guaranteed income of roughly $3,000, with a paid-off flat, can genuinely cover a modest retirement here. And remember the most important word: forever. If Wei lives to 95, the payout is still coming. If he lives to 100, it is still coming. A normal pot of savings, no matter how big, can be drained. You spend it down, and one day it hits zero, often at the worst possible moment. When you are old and frail and least able to earn more. CPF Life has no zero. That is what 30 years of boring topping up actually bought him, the end of the fear of zero. And we have not even mentioned the other engine yet. Remember the side portfolio Wei built from his reinvested tax savings? After 30 years of compounding in the market, that pot has grown into a meaningful sum, illustratively, somewhere in the region of $80,000 to $120,000. That is his liquid money. The money he can touch any time, with no lockup, for emergencies, or treats, or helping his kids. So Wei has both, a locked floor that pays forever, and a liquid pot he fully controls. Look at what that combination gives him. The CPF side handles the one thing markets cannot promise, a guaranteed income that never stops. The index fund side handles the one thing CPF cannot give, full liquidity and access. He didn't have to choose between safety and freedom. By using the tax relief as the bridge, he got a slice of both. That is the quiet genius of what Wei did, and it all started with a top-up his brother laughed at. Now the other side of the table. The brother who laughed what did 30 years by him. Now let's turn to Jun, because this story is only honest if we look at both. Jun is the same age. He had the same career, the same income, the same opportunities. But he never topped up. His CPF holds only what was automatically contributed from his salary over the years, real, but minimal compared to his brothers. He did not reach the full retirement sum with much to spare. So his CPF Life payout is real, but noticeably smaller. Jun's monthly CPF Life income might be, illustratively, somewhere closer to $1,400 to $1,800 a month. Still something CPF makes sure almost no one gets nothing. But noticeably less than Wei's. And here is the cruel arithmetic: the gap in their monthly payouts is not because Jun earned less. They earned the same. It is purely because of what each brother did with the money after it arrived. Sit with the size of that gap. Month after month, for the rest of their lives, Wei receives perhaps $1,500 more than his brother. Over a year, that is around $18,000. Over a 25-year retirement, it is hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra guaranteed income. From the same starting salary, separated only by a single repeated decision. But the dollars are not even the worst of it for Jun. The worst part is the feeling. Jun, in his 60s, is anxious. He looks at his smaller payout and his thin savings and does the maths that keeps people awake at night. What if I live a long time? What if I get sick? What if it isn't enough? And so, quietly, he keeps working. Not because he loves it. Because he is afraid to stop. Here is the part that should stop all of us. When the brothers were 30, Jun was the one who looked like he was winning. He had the nicer things, the visible life, the laugh at the dinner table. Wei looked like the boring one missing out. 30 years later, the picture has completely flipped, and the cruelest thing is that nothing dramatic ever happened. No crash. No disaster. Just the same small choice, made differently, every year, for 30 years. And if you are sitting there as Jun older, behind, anxious, please hear this clearly. It is not a story about you being doomed. Topping up still helps even when you start late, because the 4% still pays, and the tax relief still lands. Starting at 50 is worse than starting at 30, but it is far better than never starting. The best time was decades ago. The second best time is this year's tax season. So far this looks like a clean story: top up, win, spend, lose. But real life is never that clean, and a script that pretended it was would be lying to you. Now we do the most important part of this whole episode. We tell you, honestly, when topping up your CPF is a bad idea. Everything we've said about Wei is real and the maths holds. But if we stop here, we'd be selling you something, and Lukebook does not sell. If you only remember one part of this episode, let it be this part, because it is the part that keeps you safe. Honest truth number 1, and the big one: the money is locked. Jun was right about this. When you top up your CPF, that money is gone from your hands until retirement age. You cannot get it back next year because you lost your job. You cannot pull it out for a medical emergency that isn't covered. You cannot reach it if your business needs rescuing. Once it's in, it is gone until you are old. This is not a small footnote. This is the central trade-off, and you must take it seriously. The 4% is the reward for giving up excess. If there is any reasonable chance you will need that money in the next 10, 20, or 30 years, then locking it away at 4% is not clever, it's dangerous. Liquidity, the ability to reach your own money, has real value, and a top-up costs you that value. Which leads straight to honest truth number 2. You should not top up a single dollar until you have a proper emergency fund sitting in cash you can reach instantly. Most sensible guidance suggests something like 3 to 6 months of expenses, liquid, before you lock anything away. CPF cannot be your emergency fund, because the whole point of one is that you can grab it in an emergency, and CPF you cannot grab at all. Foundation before floor. Honest truth number 3, and this one is non-negotiable. If you are carrying high-interest debt, topping up CPF to earn 4% is mathematically backwards. A credit card rolling over at 20-something%. A fast personal loan. You would be earning 4 on one hand while losing 20-something on the other. Pay off the expensive debt first. Always. A guaranteed 4% return is wonderful, but a guaranteed 20% saving, by killing your debt, is far better. If you remember nothing else, remember this checklist. It comes before any top-up. Let's make the order of operations date simple, because this matters more than any clever trick. First, kill high-interest debt. Second, build an emergency fund you can reach. Third, get basic insurance so one accident doesn't wipe you out. Only then, with all of that in place, does topping up your CPF become a smart move rather than a reckless one. Wei did the first 3 before he ever touched the 4th. Honest truth number 4, do not overtop up. There is a real temptation, once you understand the 4%, to shovel everything you can into CPF. Resist it. You still have to live. You still need money for the years between now and retirement. 30 or 40 years of life you must actually fund. If you lock so much away that your present life becomes miserable and cashless, you have used a good tool to make a bad decision. Balance, not maximization. This connects to something we say in almost every Lukebook episode. Do not become a joyless miser in the name of a future that isn't promised to you. Wei did not deprive himself to top up. He topped up from genuine surplus, after his life was already funded and enjoyed. The point of building a floor is to free you to live, not to make you so frightened of spending that you forget to. Honest truth number 5, the rules can change. The 4% floor, the relief caps, the retirement sums, the withdrawal ages, these are all set by policy, and policy moves over time, usually slowly and with notice. So treat every specific number in this episode as illustrative and subject to change. The principle is safe, tax-advantaged floor is durable. The exact figures are not promises. And the most important caveat of all, this strategy is simply not for everyone. Honest truth number 6, this is genuinely not right for everyone. If you are young, with decades for growth assets to compound, a heavy CPF tilt may be too conservative. If you are a business owner who needs capital flexible, locking it away could choke your real engine of wealth. If you are lower income and pay little tax, you lose the relief gift entirely. The right answer depends on your life, not on a YouTube video. And a final honest word on the tax relief, because it's easy to oversell. The relief is only worth real money if you actually pay meaningful income tax. For a large share of Singaporeans on modest incomes, the tax bill is already small. So for them, the top-up is a pure 4% and lock-up decision, and they should judge it only on that basis, not on a tax benefit that won't really show up. Let's also be fair to Jun one more time, because the easy version of this story makes him the fool, and that's not honest. Jun enjoyed 30 years of his money in real time. He had experiences way delayed. If Jun had hit a crisis, his flexible money would have rescued him while Wei's was locked. Jun's path was riskier for old age, but it was not stupid. It was a different bet, with different trade-offs. The mistake was not spending, it was never building any floor at all. In fact, the wisest path probably sits between the two brothers. Pure Wei, locking everything away, risks a cramped present. Pure Jun, spending it all, risks a frightening old age. The person who does best usually borrows from both. Enjoys life today and quietly builds a guaranteed floor for tomorrow. You do not have to pick a brother. You are allowed to be a sensible blend of the two. And the most important sentence in this whole episode, none of this is financial advice. It is education. Your income, your debts, your family, your health, your risk tolerance, and your goals are all unique to you, and no general story can know them. If you are about to lock away real money for decades, talk to a qualified, fee-based advisor, or at the very least read the official CPF materials yourself, slowly. We've seen the gift, the maths, the 30-year curve, the payout, and every honest reason to be careful. Now let's pull it all together into something you can use. Here is the central idea to carry away. Treat CPF as the guaranteed floor of your financial life, not the whole house, just the safe, boring base. A simple way to picture a balanced plan. The exciting wealth, the part that might make you rich, lives elsewhere, in markets and businesses and your own skills. CPF's job is humbler and just as vital, to make sure that no matter what those riskier bets do, you can never end up with nothing. And let the 4% be boring. That is a feature, not a bug. You will spend your investing life chasing returns and feeling clever or foolish. Through all of it, this one quiet account will just pay its 4% every year, asking nothing of you. The boring heavy lifting it does in the background is precisely what lets you take sensible risks elsewhere without lying awake at night. Keep liquidity for life. This is the lesson from Jun's side of the ledger that Wei almost got wrong. Never lock away money you might actually need. Keep a real cash buffer. Keep some investments you can sell. The floor is built from genuine surplus, after your needs are already met. A floor is only a floor if you can still stand comfortably in the room above it. If you do decide a top-up fits you, borrow Wei's best trick, reinvest the tax relief. The safe tax is found money you would have lost anyway. Don't let it dribble back into spending. Send it into a low-cost index fund. Let it become your liquid, growing counterweight to the locked-up CPF. That one habit is what turned Wei from someone with a flaw into someone with a flaw and a portfolio. So how do you actually do this without it falling apart? 3 simple habits. Make it automatic and make it annual. The reason Wei succeeded was not willpower, it was a calendar. Once a year, near tax season, he did the same boring thing without deliberating. If a decision relies on you feeling motivated each time, you will eventually skip it. Decide once, then let the system carry you for 30 years. There is an emotional takeaway too, and it might be the most valuable one. Be willing to look boring for a long time. The boring path feels like losing for years before it feels like winning. Most people cannot tolerate that, which is exactly why the rewards are still there for those who can. You will not get a trophy in year 5. You get it in year 30, quietly, in the form of a payout that just keeps arriving. Let's recap the whole journey in one breath. 2 brothers, same salary. One topped up his CPF every year, reinvested the tax relief, and let 4% compound. One spent the money and called CPF a black hole. 30 years on, the topper-upper has a guaranteed income for life plus a side portfolio. The spender is anxious and still working. Same money. Opposite beliefs. Wildly different endings. So which brother are you, right now, today? Not forever, just today. There is no shame in being Jun. Most Singaporeans are, by default, because nobody ever explained the 4% to them, or the tax relief, or what CPF Life quietly does at the end. The whole purpose of this episode was to explain it once, clearly, so that whatever you choose next, you are choosing with open eyes instead of a laugh at the dinner table. And to be completely clear, the right answer might genuinely be not to top up. If you have debt, no buffer, a young person's horizon, or a real need for flexible money, walking away is the smart, mature choice. Wisdom here is not maximizing the 4%. It is knowing whether the 4% is even the right tool for your particular life right now. Let's circle all the way back to the word that started the whole argument. Let's go back to where we started, to that word black hole. Jun saw CPF as money that disappears. But a black hole, by definition, lets nothing escape. CPF is the opposite. It is one of the few places that quietly, reliably gives back. 4% a year, tax relief, and a paycheck for life at the end. The money does not vanish. It waits. And then, exactly when you are old and need it most, it comes back to you, larger and steadier than it left. So if there is one thing to take from the 2 brothers, let it be this. You do not need to be rich, or clever, or lucky to build a floor under your old age. You need a guaranteed 4% that already exists, a little patience, the discipline to leave it alone, and the wisdom to keep enough liquid to live. The boring path is open to almost everyone. Most people just laugh at it, like Jun did, until the day they wish they hadn't. Let's end where every Singapore story ends, back at the hawker center, years later. One last image of the 2 brothers. Picture them at 70, back at that same hawker center where it all started. Wei orders without checking his account, because the payout came again this month, like it always does. Jun checks the bill twice. Neither is a villain. But one of them spent 30 years quietly buying himself this exact, unremarkable, priceless moment of not having to worry. That moment was on sale the whole time, at 4% a year. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this helped you see CPF a little differently, share it with the brother, sister, or friend who still calls it a black hole. That one conversation could change someone's entire retirement. Remember, this was education, not financial advice. Take the principles, check the current official numbers for yourself, and make the choice that fits your real life. I'm Wayne, this has been Lukebook, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If this made building wealth in Singapore a little clearer, give it a like and subscribe to Lukebook so you don't miss the next episode. See you in the next one.